Hello and welcome to Two Trees Gaming and the second to last day of our going through the army books. We're on the profiles of the forces of evil now. I'm just giving very initial reactions, things that might have changed, things that jump out at me, and I'm just loving it. Hopefully you are too. Get your paints out, there's 2 more days of this. Let's get cracking. So, forces of evil, let's go. Azog is the same as he used to be in terms of his basic stat line. I think with the fight value increase, that does now make sense, being fight value 7. In the old edition, going down to fight 6 would probably have been the better way to resolve it, but this feels right. So the stone flail has had a bit of a change. Instead of spinning around and hitting everybody in the combat, he gets the Mighty Blow special rule, so he's going to do 2 wounds every time instead of D3 as well. His fight value is reduced to 6, which really isn't that bad. And it's going to activate his Burly special rule. He has Burly anyway, but he's only armed with a hand weapon. Now, he'll get a turned weapon, it'll get him +1 to wound. I think that part of it is similar to the previous edition, whereas before he could whirl as well and hit everybody in the combat, if I'm remembering that right. He's still got the same I am the master rule, which means he always needs a maximum of a 3+ to wound an enemy hero. It's a natural 3+, so you can't might a 2 up to it if you're facing Smow, for example. But it makes sense. I mean, he kills Thorin and Philly in the film. The White Wag's had a bit of a degrade as well. He's gone down to 2 might, which I think is right. No more 6 might as I'm wandering around the battlefield. He's still going to be 5 might though. Buls had a tiny upgrade, but at the cost of 10 points. So he's 175 points now. He's got Burly, he's got his turned weapon, he can still just absolutely rip into enemies. And now his special rule that gives him upgrades as he gets more kills is a tiny bit easier. So it's 2 kills for Terror, 5 for Harbinger of Evil, and 8 for the Mighty Hero special rule. He's got his Felwag option. I don't know what the base size on the Felwag is going to be. Now base sizes are listed. There's no special exception here that Bolg's Felwag is on a different base size. Maybe that means he'll be getting repackaged, or maybe it's just a bit of an oversight. Yazneg is the orc that was originally going to be Azog's design. He's got up to fight value 5, 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate, strength 4, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds. He's got a turned weapon, so he's stuck going 2-handed all the time. He can upgrade to have a lance when he gets on a Felwag, which is probably how you're always going to take him. At the beginning of a combat he's involved in, if he's within 3 inches of Azog, he can re-roll all of his dual dice. But if he fails to win the combat, he automatically suffers a wound. There's no roll of dice. I think Azog's just lopped a chunk of him off. He's got Heroic Strike. He's a good, solid hero. And if you can get him on his Wag and charging into fight value 4 models within 3 inches of Azog, he's getting 6 dice on the charge. He's going to be winning the fight. So much more useful than the previous rule he had, where Azog could kill him and different things could happen. Never a big fan of that one. Thimble hasn't changed much, except now he's only got 2 might points. I think this is to level out Hunter Orcs a little bit at lower points values. They were very good before. He can charge through difficult terrain just as he could before, and when he charges and he's got the cavalry keyword, he does get +1 to his fight value. So that will take him up to fight value 5, which is a nice little bonus. He's still an inexpensive hero as well. 50 points, get him with some foot Hunter Orcs, or stick him on his Wag, 70 points. But Wags are looking expensive now. If you want an all-mounted hero list, I'm fairness, Narog I've just seen can't take a Wag, but you know, you're 20 points for Bolgs, 20 points for Yaznegs, 20 points for Thimbles, 20 points for the Hunter Orc Captain. Are you better on foot with potentially 10 more warriors? I like the having to choose. Narog has lost his Wag. That was to be expected. There's no model of it available. He's also got 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. But crucially, he's gone up to shoot value 3+. He's also got a poisoned Orc bow, and he's got the same rule where he can essentially modify a dice by 1 point. He's pretty good. He's not the first name on the team sheet. I actually think that of the budget heroes, I'd probably go Yazneg, then him, then Fimble now, depending on whether you wanted them to be mounted or not, but I like the options. So Hunter Orc captains are now down to 2 attacks, but they have a special rule. So fight value 4, shoot value 4+, strength 4, defense 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, 2 might, 1 will, 1 fate. Heroic March. This model gains a bonus of +1 to its attacks on a turn in which it charges. It doesn't say anything about they've got to be on foot or anything like that. So even on his Felwag, that's going to be 3 attacks, 4 on the charge. Very cool. Hunter Orc warriors also have that special rule. They're still 8 points, but they're down to 1 attack now. I think that's right. They were undercosted for me before anyway. I think they were undercosted, especially at low points. You'd see loads of Hunter Orc armies. But fight value 3, 4+ shoot, strength 4, defense 4, 1 attack, 1 wound, and then +1 attack on a turn that they charge. So I guess the Hunter Orcs now are built around charging in and hitting hard. You're going to want plenty of might points, which obviously Fimble and Narog have lost 1, but Buls can now more easily get to the Mighty Hero special rule, or some interesting positioning might help. They probably won't have access to spears in the pure Hunter Orc list, but maybe you could leave gaps between your models so that the enemy can charge your front line. You can then counter charge with a back line, and you'll still get the charge even if you've lost priority, or get the charge with half your models. Hunter Orc Wag Riders are much more valuable now. They get +1 attacks on the charge as well. Otherwise they are just Hunter Orcs on Wags, but they're probably going to be pretty good and pretty popular, and judging by how we see them in the film, that's a good thing. They're mounted on their Wags most of the time. I wonder what an all cavalry, all mounted Hunter Orc army would look like. One day I will build the Pines and we will play that scenario. So Felwags haven't changed. They're still move 10, fight 3, strength 4, defense 4. They're a little more intelligent than they are courageous, and they've still got Fel Sight. And crucially, on the Hunter Orc Wag Riders, they'll also obviously have Fel Sight, which means they'll be able to charge around corners, which maybe for a turn with the right terrain could all but guarantee a charge. And when you're getting an extra attack on the charge, that could be very, very useful. Moving on to Gundabad now. There's quite a lot for the Goblin Mercenary, but it looks like it's the same as it was before. And so are the actual Goblin Mercenaries, but they are 1 point more than they used to be. They were quite an easy thing to just chuck in to grab objectives or make the opponent think. I think that's right, that point is increased. Gundabad Berserkers haven't changed, other than they're a lot more courageous than they are intelligent. So they're not maybe going to be able to grab objectives quite as well as they used to be, especially with their 8-inch moves, if it is a intelligence test required for the objective, of course. Gundabad Orc Warriors and Gundabad Orc Captains have gone up a fight value. They've gone up in points as well, but they're now fight 5 and fight 4. I think that's right. They seem like they're more well trained than like the Mordor Orc Rabble. Whether they're better than Morannons, I don't know, and they're now on the same footing as Uruk-hai, but then Uruk-hai get the shield wall. You also can't take spears and shields with them now, so I'm neither here nor there on that. Gundabad Trolls have changed a little bit. Same basic stat line, I believe. Fight value 7, strength 7, defense 8, 3 attacks, 4 wounds. Their Crushing Club gives them the Mighty Blow special rule, and then roll a dice on a 3+. If you've not killed them, they're not prone. Or you can spend 10 points to swap that for Scythe Claws, which gives them 4 attacks. 4 attacks and 4 wounds. They've got Dominant 4, Ancient Enemies, Dwarf and Elf, so they're re-rolling 1s. They're going to be absolute beasts to bring down on the new rules, especially if you're hitting the spear supports as well. And I think that maybe Barge is being slept on a little bit. If you've got one of these guys with 4 attacks near a hero, and you can barge, you know you're going to get at least a 4-inch movement. Very happy to say, I don't know if you can see them, but no, they're just off camera. I've obviously got my Gundabad Trolls from the Battle of 5 Armies. Hopefully, they're going to see some tournament action. Gundabad Ogres haven't changed at all. They always felt quite cheap to me. If you could use them right, the Defense 5 never really mattered. You're still going to be getting 2 of those for every 1 Gundabad Troll. I'd probably lean toward the Gundabad Ogres, but there's certainly no harm in having a mix. A Troll Brute is now a War Beast. So does that mean they have to trample only in one direction? So there's no more sneaking around and knocking the spear supports off certain combats and then dipping back into a hero. They've got a Rider, which means they've got a point of might. So they've got 1 might, 1 will, 1 fate. They're 120 points. And obviously they're strength 7, so you'll still need to charge them with probably 3 warriors to stop their trample. And the trample's 2 strength 10 impact hits. So they've changed quite a lot. It's another one I just want to get on the battlefield. There's a lot of cool stuff here. It's 4 wounds as well. I've just got to get, I think, Gundabad Captain, and then Trolls, Brutes, Ogres, Berserkers, Warbats. We've not seen those, but let's just bring all of that stuff and not worry about Azog or Bolg. Warbats have been simplified, and I think that's for the better. So they've got Fly, have fight value 3, defense 4, strength 4, 2 attacks, 2 wounds. Their piercing talons now give them +1 to wound on a turn in which they've charged. I think before it lowered the defense of the enemy, but only for the bat. So surely that was the same as raising the bat's strength. It seemed a strange way of phrasing it in the old rules. And then Pluck is simplified as well. Now, if you move over a 25mm based model, roll the dice on a 4+, they're not prone. Simple as that. It means you're not getting a strength 4 hit on them, but it's less dice rolling, less complicated, and they're pretty good anyway. Although, yeah, they do have the beast keyword, so they're not going to be grabbing your objectives, but I approve of those changes. The Catapult, I know from our Discord with the patrons, it's in the game. I'm just surprised it's in the game though. There's no model for it. I'll just cross everything that it means there's a model coming out at some point soon for it. Clearly they're being fully dedicated to the movies. This is in the movies. Where's the Model Games Workshop? Where's the model? There are some scenarios where the Catapult Troll is just going to be amazing. A game where the opponent's got to spread out. It can be in combat and fighting and still firing the catapult. Yes, it's only hitting on a 6, but a catapult can be devastating. And 180 points, that's the same as an Ogre and a Gundabad Troll. Probably rather have the Catapult Troll. It's got 5 wounds, defense 8, strength 8, fight value 7. It's an absolute beast, and it gets D6 attacks from little goblins that scurry down and kill the things near it. Very tempted to try and convert one, but there's a lot going on there. You're going to need the Catapult, the Troll, and ideally some Goblins to put in and around it. Would like to see one on the battlefield. Would like to play against one, definitely. Although, wouldn't expect to win. So I really like the changes for Azog's Hunters. The +1 attacks on the charge, encouraging them to work on foot or as cavalry. Slightly less might to make them maybe a little less powerful at lower points games. It's all really good stuff. And I've just realised as I flip back that Fimble doesn't have Heroic Strike. Does Yazneg? Yazneg does. Interesting. I also like the changes to Gundabad. The actual Gundabad warriors, whether they should have gone up to fight 5, I don't know. But I love the Troll Brute being a war beast, and then the Gundabad Troll just absolutely smashing. 4 attacks, 4 wounds, defense 8. Holy moly. Right. The Necromancer. Same basic stat line as before, so still fight value 7. I thought maybe there was a chance he would go up to 8, but I think this is still good. Strength 6, defense 8, 2 attacks now, so not the same basic stat line. 1 wound, and then 3 might, 25 will, no fate, but same as before, he can use his will points as fate. He's still going to be an absolute beast to bring down. He's got dominant 5. Drain Soul. He's got the Unholy Resurrection bonus. So this is the Nazgul that zip around in the Battle of 5 Armies film. They can bring themselves back to life, essentially. The Necromancer makes it easier for them to do that, but now he's got to be in range of them, so you can't spread them out anywhere on the battlefield and resurrect them on a 2+. If he's got loads of will, the range is higher. But if he gets down to 9 or fewer will, it's only in a 6-inch range. That's interesting. And it's a little bit finicky, but I think with that type of army where you're probably going to max out at the 10 models, but normally a lot fewer, I think that's fine. I like that. So the Keeper of the Dungeons is a mini Bolg, which makes thematic sense. That was the original design for Bolg as he appeared in the movies, and then they redid him with CGI and is the Bolg as we know now. So what we've got here is like Bolg Light. Fight value 5, strength 5, defense 6, 3 attacks now, 2 wounds, 3 might, 3 will, no fate. Is very much like a Dragon Knight if you know your Easterlings. Although this guy's arguably better, even though he can't ride a horse. He's got a turned weapon and burly. He's got heroic strike. He's 80 points. When he's killed a model, he can re-roll rolls of a 1 when making strikes. 3 or more models he gains terror, and 5 or more models he can re-roll all failed wounds when making strikes. He also gets +1 to wound when fighting against bearers of the rings. He's cool. I like him a lot. It depends what list he falls into to how much action he'll see. I think we see him in the background of the Battle of Azanulbazar, where Azog gets his arm chopped off. So hopefully he'll appear in a list for that, as well as in with the Necromancer and the Wraiths, where we're expecting to see him, but we'll have to see. So the Nazgul themselves, I can't speak for in much detail, but it looks like they've been brought down just a touch. They're now 80 points. And crucially, they have 1 might now instead of 2. Every time I've ever played them or seen them played, everybody saves their might for the Unholy Resurrection roll. They're now only going to be able to bump that 1 to a 2 once. There are a few other little changes though. The Witch King goes up to fight value 6 and gets 3 points of might instead of 1. So he's getting 2 extra might and an extra fight value. Kamul goes up to 3 attacks. That's as it was. And then the others I don't know for definite if they've changed or not, but 1 has Bane of Kings, 1 can get Mighty Blow if he rolls a natural 6 on his dual roll. The Slayer of Men have turned weapons. They can re-roll failed wound rolls when making strikes against heroes, and if they're within an inch of each other, they get the Burly special rule. Abyssal Knights can kind of zap together, and the Lingering Shadow gets a 3-inch kind of phasing move where he can move through models before the move phase. I like these changes. A lot of them are the same. I think they needed to be a little bit more expensive. I think they've done the right thing here. I would like to give them a go. I know that Aaron never liked playing against them really. He's had a couple of good games against them, but when they're put down in front of you, you go, okay, I know what I'm getting into. I've only ever played them once, which was at the GT where I had Gil Galad, who had Blood and Glory, fight value 9, +1 to wound, -1 on the resurrections. It wasn't really a competition. And then Leon played them at Throne of Schools and thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I need to invest in these and get them on the table and see how they do. Spiders, right, Louis is going to be very interested here because he's our spider guy. The Spider Queen and Razgush are now legacy, so I guess the spiders are going to be in the Dol Guldur army. It seems that way looking at this. Interesting. So you're not going to be getting pure spiders, which means you're not going to be recreating the Mirkwood Rangers fighting against the spiders in a match play scenario. So the Mirkwood spider is as it was before. The giant spiders, which are now called Mirkwood Hunting Spiders, have gone down from fight value 4 to fight value 3, but they do have Stalk Unseen. So that is a debuff. 20 points apiece. They were very, very good before. I just want to know what army list they fit into, to be honest. Right, the Misty Mountains. And crucially, the most important thing here is that Gollum and the Goblin King can no longer team up, halve somebody's fight value and absolutely destroy them, because to use the One Ring and make the most of the halving the opponent's fight value, you have to be the only friendly combatant. But let's see if anything else has changed. The Goblin King looks to be exactly as he was before, but he's 150 points instead of 130 now. There's no doubt that he was undercosted before, but that's potentially 5 goblins. Interesting. Grinner no longer has heroic strike. He's gone up in points and lost a point of might. He's not gained anything either. In fact, his special rule, where you can swap places with him, is now only with a model on a 25mm base, so no more swapping with the Goblin King. I guess this is all to just get a few less goblins on the table, or maybe less points of might per goblin. It must just be to balance them out at lower points. I mean, now you're 200 points for Grinner and the Goblin King, and you've got 5 might points, whereas before you would have been 170 points and had 6 might points. It's just taking the edge off Goblin Town, I think. Golem's the same as he used to be, but it's 5 more points than he used to be. He's also got a rule where he has to charge a ring bearer. Nice and thematic, it's not going to affect most games. The Goblin Scribe has changed, and I love it. I was always afraid to take the Goblin Scribe because it was a little complicated, moving models on here, who's broken, what counts toward what. He's got completely different rules now. I really like it. So he's immobile, he's got to be carried around, same as before. Fight value 1, move 0. Strength 2, defense 2, 1 attack, 1 wound. No might, 1 will, 1 fate. But here's the thing. If the Goblin King calls a heroic move while within 6 inches of the Goblin Scribe, so you're going to be carrying the Scribe with you, and calls with me, it affects the whole battlefield, and they don't have to stay within 6 of the Goblin King. Additionally, any friendly Goblin hero that begins their activation within 3 inches of the Scribe can spend a point of might to give the Goblin King a point of might. I'm sure there are ways of making that work that are just going to be so powerful. If you can call a heroic move battlefield wide, have your Goblin King behind your line, the opponent might have to call multiple heroic moves to combat it, and if they don't, your Goblin King can still charge because he can still move through your goblins. He's got the same rules he used to have. Love that. And obviously powering the king up with more heroic strikes, more heroic combats, more heroic actions with your lesser goblin heroes is great as well. The goblin captains don't seem to have changed much, nor the goblin warriors in terms of their stats, but the captains are 5 more points than they used to be, and the goblin warriors are 1 more points. Tallying all of that up, Goblin Town is now a lot more expensive than it used to be. You're going to get a lot less goblins than you used to. The points do matter, but they almost don't matter because they're only going to be used in that one army list. So if the bonus is good enough, you're going to be taking them. Looking forward to seeing that. But first, it's the 3 trolls. So Bill is the same as he used to be, but he's fight value 8 now, and of course he's got the new monster rules. Looking good. I think it's going to be about the army list again, but let's see. The other 2 trolls haven't changed either, apart from their fight value increase, but their rules were always good. I just want to see what more is going to be added to them. Oh, that's not the end of it, of course. We've got a dragon. Smow. So Smow is still an army unto himself. He's 700 points. He's got the same stat line as before, I think. Fight value 9, shoot value 2+, strength 9, defense 9, 4 attacks, 20 wounds, and then 3 might, 6 will, no fate. He's got heroic challenge, but no heroic strike. How many heroes can actually get to fight value 10 now? But your Glorfindels of the world, who is actually particularly good against Smaug, can get above him and deal some damage. He's got Breathe Fire, which is going to do strength 10 hits within 2 inches. He can't be knocked prone, and if you hit with a shooting attack and roll a natural 6, you inflict the number of wounds equal to the strength of the bow because of his missing scale. So you can do some serious damage to him if you get lucky with some elven bows. He can make a strength 9 hit on every model in the combat. He doesn't barge and knock them prone now. I think that's a good thing. It was a little oppressive before where you got knocked prone, then he could charge into you, and because you couldn't strike, there was no damage ever done in return. Now at least he's got to be able to charge to knock you prone, and maybe there's a little more thinking to be done about what move he chooses to use to do, 1 strength 9 hit or go in for 1 hero, and whether you charge him on a turn he's charged you or absorb that and then try and counter. And he's going to be using his might for things like moves and getting around the battlefield rather than just striking up to fight 10. So I like the changes. I think he's a little worse than he used to be, except he's got this dominant 20. So he's going to count for 20 models on an objective. And maybe with his base size, he might even be able to hit 2 objectives at once. He can still cast magic. Oh! And there's a huge new rule. Colossal Frame. Enemy models can target Smaug with shooting attacks even if he's engaged in combat, and if they do, they don't take in the way test for friendly models. So if you have got that Wind Lance, you can shoot it into combat. if you've got elven bows, you can spread them around and just pepper them at him. I guess what you could do as well, if you've got some decent bows, is kind of stagger him or create areas where he can't land near your archers to get as many shots as possible at him. He definitely has a weakness to bows now. It's going to be hard to wound him, but if you roll that 6, you could do quite a few wounds to him if you do. Thank you so much for watching. It's been so much fun to make these videos. I really enjoyed going through the books. We've got one more day left tomorrow, which is the evil army lists. Can't wait to share them with you. We'll see you tomorrow.